A massive oil spill in California. A Facebook whistleblower speaks out. And Biden cuts the price of his infrastructure bill. That and more on this week's headlines. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin is set to send actor William Shatner into space on October 12th. Famous for his portrayal of Captain Kirk in the original Star Trek series, the 90-year-old Shatner will become the oldest person to ever travel into space. And I say, if we're allowing actors to live out their most famous roles in real life, then after we put Captain Kirk in space, I vote Blue Origin's next move should be putting Bruce Willis on an exploding asteroid. That would be less of a cosmic sin than his new movie, Cosmic Sin. Forget the money, I just want my time back. Speaking of disasters, more than 125,000 gallons of crude oil spilled into the Pacific Ocean from a pipeline that split in Southern California. This is the slimiest mess to be unleashed in Southern California since Harvey Weinstein. The pipeline was likely split open when a ship's anchor hooked onto and dragged it for over 100 feet underwater. The oil spill encompasses nearly 13 square miles from Newport Beach to Huntington Beach. Experts said it's too early to determine the effects of the spill on marine life, but the number of animals that were harmed was, quote, minimal. Although they do now look like they're going to a costume party with Justin Trudeau. California Governor Gavin Newsom declared a state of emergency in Orange County. It's no surprise. With all that oil in the ocean, it's more likely to ignite from one of the nearby wildfires. In California, even the water isn't safe from going up in flames. Part of the reason why this oil spill was so massive is because the response to it was heavily delayed. The U.S. Coast Guard was alerted to a possible oil spill in the area, but it took another 12 hours for the company operating the pipeline, Amplify Energy, to actually report the leak and begin cleanup efforts. This level of incompetence would be surprising if it happened anywhere besides Southern California. After all, Southern California is where a football game Monday night at an indoor stadium was delayed due to weather. With that level of expertise, delays are to be expected. But if you live in California and are worried about all these disasters and how they'll affect your quality of life, there's good news. You can now buy machines that make water out of air. The machines work by using coils to chill the air and collect water droplets. So move over Evian and Fiji. The new hot water brand in town is California Skies. In fact, I have a glass of it right here. Tastes like smog, ash, and dying dreams. So refreshing. More after the break. Welcome back. The New York Public Library System announced it will no longer charge late fees. The president of the New York Public Library said for those who can't afford the fines, disproportionately low-income New Yorkers, they become a real barrier to access that we can no longer accept. This is a step towards a more equitable society, with more New Yorkers reading and using libraries, and we are proud to make it happen. As someone who lives in New York, this is great news, because this means I can now save a ton of money on new furniture by making it out of library books I don't have to return. Thanks, New York Public Library. What? It's not like the kids read anymore. They're all on Instagram. Except this past Monday, that is, when Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp went down for 7 hours. It was the longest worldwide outage of the platforms ever. Facebook said these outages were caused by configuration changes on the backbone routers that coordinate network traffic between our data centers, causing issues that interrupted this communication. This disruption to network traffic had a cascading effect on the way our data centers communicate, bringing our services to a halt. And I would totally understand what that meant if I actually read any of the books I sleep on. Facebook and Instagram have been restored, but maybe that's not all good news. Former Facebook data scientist Frances Haugen testified before the Senate Commerce Subcommittee on Consumer Protection on Tuesday, criticizing the site. Haugen, who was a lead product manager on Facebook's civic misinformation team, said Facebook's products harm children, stoke division, and weaken our democracy. The company's leadership knows how to make Facebook and Instagram safer, but won't make the necessary changes because they have put their astronomical profits before people. Wow, that's not really new information. Haugen just confirmed things we always suspected. Kind of like if someone came out and exposed that movie theater hot dogs are made out of galoshes and raccoon knuckles. Or that Mark Zuckerberg was an alien. Release the Facebook documents on that. Haugen also said that Facebook will likely resume work on an Instagram app for children 13 and under, despite the company announcing they would delay it. Of course, they only delayed Instagram for kids after facing backlash when documents were leaked from within Facebook that showed how harmful Instagram is for teen girls. You know, Pfizer requested that drug regulators let children ages 5 through 11 receive their COVID vaccine this week. But if you really want to keep kids healthy and happy, keep them off social media. Social media is even more unhealthy than movie theater hot dogs. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg responded to Haugen's claims, saying they don't make sense. Then again, a lot of things don't make sense to Mark Zuckerberg, such as how to drink water properly, not applying so much sunscreen that you look like the anti-Trudeau, and actually passing as human. Zuckerberg said many of the claims don't make any sense. If we wanted to ignore research, why would we create an industry-leading research program to understand these important issues in the first place? That actually makes perfect sense. Why would you ignore your own research? Money and power, of course. Why else? Just ask all the COVID hypocrites in office. They've been doing it for 19 months now. We'll have more on the Facebook whistleblower in an upcoming episode. But speaking of money, after the break, President Biden's infrastructure deal gets a new price tag. Welcome back. President Biden said he would sign a reconciliation package over his spending bill, even if it included the Hyde Amendment. The Hyde Amendment bans using federal funds to pay for abortions. It was a sticking point for moderate Democrat Senator Joe Manchin, who wanted the amendment in the spending plan. And I know some of you might be thinking that politicians opposed to using federal funds for abortions are hypocrites, since so many of them pay for abortions for their mistresses with their salaries, which comes from taxpayer money. Well, you'll be happy to know that's not necessarily the case. A lot of politicians make money outside of their taxpayer salaries, like with corporate donations, bribes, and speaking fees. So the money for their mistress's abortion could come from anywhere. Now, if Biden signs a reconciliation package that includes the Hyde Amendment, that would obviously upset the progressives in the Democratic Party. So, why did he say he would do it?
I want to get the bill passed.
So how would you sign it if the Hyde Amendment is included?
I'd sign it either way.
He just wants to get the bill passed and would sign it either way. Coincidentally, the machine that makes water out of air was there for that interview, and I have a glass of what it produced right here. Oh, it tastes like desperation, Metamucil, and dying dreams. So refreshing. The Hyde Amendment isn't all President Biden compromised on. He lowered the price of his spending package from $3.5 trillion to $2.3 trillion in hopes of getting it passed. While cutting the price of his plan by almost a third seems like a loss, it's actually a brilliant negotiating tactic. I'm going to try it myself. Please, donate $3.5 trillion to America Uncovered on Patreon. If you can't afford that, I'd settle for only $2.3 trillion, because I believe in compromise. While progressives are upset with Biden saying he'd be willing to include the Hyde Amendment, moderates in his party were probably livid when he said he'd be willing to nuke the filibuster to raise the debt ceiling.
Are Democrats considering using the nuclear option to raise the debt limit? Using a carve-out with the filibuster to raise the debt limit?
Well, I think that's a real possibility.
Biden can't please progressives and can't please moderates. And obviously conservatives don't like him. Probably the only person who does like what Biden is doing is the woman who wants him to fail and step down. But anyway, Democrats' threat to nuke the filibuster may just have worked, as Republicans and Democrats in the Senate came to an agreement on a debt ceiling increase through December. This means that the government won't default on its debt, at least until December, when we get to go through this all over again. In better news, the Department of Education announced it plans to provide billions of dollars in student loan forgiveness for more than 500,000 public service workers. This loan forgiveness is only eligible to workers who have been in public service for at least 10 years, which I think is unfair. What about public servants who've already paid off their student loans? I say that because after I got my master's degree from NYU, it took me 10 years to pay off those loans. And most of that time, I was doing satirical news about China and America on YouTube. That's a real public service, although the powerful people I make fun of might not think so. At any rate, I had no choice but to go into this line of work, because when you get a master's degree in classical music composition, your job options are limited. So what do you think about the stories we covered this week? Let us know in the comments below. And remember, America Uncovered is supported mainly by viewers. Be sure to visit patreon.com/America Uncovered. Contribute $1 or more per episode. We rely on your support to help us keep making great episodes. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.
Oh, God.